something we have not talked about at all, which blows my mind really, because it is like the top news. I made a whole weekly reset about it, is pre-purchases and release dates and all the rest of it. Let me mount up on my beautiful, beautiful dragon, and we can talk about this. And we can talk about the pre-purchase, and we can talk about the release date, because I've talked at you in the weekly reset, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But I think it'd be nice to have your input on this as well. This week, the major news of the week has been, obviously, that the pre-purchase has hit. It is here at last. Now, I've got some questions as to why it was this week that it came out, but either way it was, and with it, of course, the latest possible release date for World of Warcraft Dragonflight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have one very simple question to you, and we're going to start a poll. Is Dragonflight releasing in 2022, yes or no? Because while this vote is happening, right, I'll try not to look at it until it's happened. You know what I've always said on this channel? I've always said that I know that Dragonflight isn't coming out in 2022, right? I know it's not. Because how could it? How could it come out in 2022? And yet, it's like when I buy a lottery ticket, right? I buy a lottery ticket and I know I'm not going to win the lottery. You know, I know like I've got more chance of being hit by a meteorite than winning the lottery, right? That doesn't change the fact that every time I buy a lottery ticket, there's a part of me that thinks I'm probably going to win. I buy that lottery ticket and I know that I'm not going to win, and yet I also think I probably will. It is possible to feel those two ways at the same time. I know I'm not going to win, obviously. Also, I think I probably will. And that's exactly how I felt about a 2022 release date for Dragonflight. It was like, I know it's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. But until they tell me it's not going to happen, I think it probably will. And here we are. Now we've got the latest release date of being 2022. And it's happened. I guess that means, in my analogy, we've won the lottery, right? But have we won the lottery? There's going to be another poll after this one as well. So at the moment, most of you think that, yes, it is going to come out in 2022. That's what most of you think. This blows my mind, honestly. I'm surprised, because I think a lot of the discourse that I've seen over this is people going, there is no effing way that this expansion is releasing in 2022. It's like, well, it says it will. And they're like, there's literally no way it's going to happen. Nuh-uh, not a chance, no way. Okay, so the majority of you, 61%, that is a landslide, think that it is going to release as promised in 2022. So here's another question for you. Will Dragonflight be a rushed piece of shit? Yes. No. This is on the assumption that it's coming out in 2022, okay? Will Dragonflight... Oh, I'm not allowed to write piece of shit. Rushed mess. There we go. Will Dragonflight be a rushed mess? Assuming that it does release in 2022. There's your question. Can we get a middle option? Nope. No fence sitting here. You commit, or there's the door. It's my way or the highway on this stream. No fence sitting. No Keir Starmers here, my friend. It's extremes, one or the other. It's 2022. No central ground. You're either my hero or you're scum. No centralists here, my lady. Oh, wait, why is this not updating? Yeah, I'm just going to have to tell you, for anyone who hasn't got the chat open, the voting is currently 46% yes, 54% no. So a much, much closer result this time. Yeah, 54% of you think that it won't be a rushed mess. But quite a lot of you, almost half of you, think that it will be a rushed mess. And I don't blame you for thinking that, honestly. You know, there's this thing where we kind of assumed that it couldn't possibly come out before 2023. And a lot of that was based on the fact that we hadn't seen anything of the game, right? And was based on the fact that alpha wasn't open. And, you know, we just hadn't seen much of it. So, judging by the time frames that we've become used to, it just didn't fit that it was going to come out this year. And I think, genuinely, it's that same thinking which is behind a lot of us assuming that it's going to be a hot mess when it comes out now. Because we haven't seen alpha yet, right? So how could it be anything but a hot mess? How could it be anything but behind when it launches in 2022? And I feel like that's maybe a bit unfair. I'm going to shit on it as well, don't worry. But for the sake of balance, I feel like that's a bit unfair that we're making these assumptions about the game that we have not seen yet. You know, like a lot of us are going, how could it possibly be ready for 2023? We haven't even seen the alpha yet. And it's like, well, yeah, so how do we know it won't be? And I do remember how surprised everyone was when 9.2 hit the PTR, and everyone was surprised with how complete it was. Everyone was surprised with how basically 9.2 was basically ready to go once the PTR came out. Because we were thinking we had much longer predictions for 9.2 until that PTR hit, and then we were like, oh no, shit, this is going to be ready really soon. This is coming out much sooner than we think it is, and it did. Beliar seems to think, says this expansion doesn't seem to have as many new systems. I disagree. Now, that's what a lot of people are saying. People are saying, well, maybe it won't need as much testing because there's no borrowed power systems, right? There's no Azerite system. There's no artifact system. There's no, covenant system. And that's true, but Beliar's not a dumbass. Beliar's a very clever man. But I think I would disagree on this particular point, because if you're talking about the systems that are in the game, the Professions update is massive. Genuinely huge. Genuinely massive. Huge undertaking, but not as big as the Talent Tree update, which is phenomenally large. 52 talent trees, all of which have to be planned and tested and balanced and given approval essentially by the player base. 51! It's insane. That's huge. And the impact that they have on each different class, and each different class's leveling experience and progression to max level and things like that. These are huge things. And once they're in place, fucking easy street, right? Because then you can make little alterations to them and what have you. But actually getting that work done is I know I'm not a game dev, right? Thank God. Fucking horrible job. People just shit to you all the time. People are disgusting to you when you're a game dev. I don't want to be a game dev. I want to be a creator and just play the games and make more money. And work when I feel like it. It's a brilliant job. I love it. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into it. The Professions is a huge undertaking, which I would imagine, not being a game dev, so I don't know what I'm talking about, Beliar is, so maybe trust him more. I would imagine it's just as huge an undertaking as a core borrowed power system. I would say as an undertaking, in terms of manpower and man hours and the amount of testing it's going to need, it's at least as big as Azerite armor. Probably as big as artifacts as well. Artifacts had all the quest lines and stuff to go with it, but if you're just looking at it as an in-game system without the quest lines, I'd say the new talent system is as big as artifacts. Didn't they say they're going to transfer a lot of the latest borrowed power to new talent trees? Seems like a lot of copy pasta. It's not the fact that they have to think up new abilities or anything like that. It's creating the balance in these trees. It's incredibly difficult and time intensive and manpower intensive, I think. Now, you might disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine, but that's how I feel about it. I feel like saying there aren't all these systems in the game, I'm not sure. I feel like the new talent trees is just as much work as the artifact system, in my opinion. There's a talent tree for every single class in the game and every single spec in the game. And that is hard to balance and hard to make up and hard to test. You can't just be like, I'm going to jump in the game today and test all 51 talent trees. It's like, it takes a long time and a lot of effort for players and QA and devs to even test those, let alone put them together. Balanced across 3 modes of play as well. Yeah, exactly. I'd imagine different teams for each class. Exactly, yeah, but they still have to balance with each other as well. I could be like, I'm in charge of the priest tree, and I have made all 3 of the priest specs equally OP. They are all perfectly balanced. They're all massively OP, but they're all the exact same amount of OP. So I have done my job. You can't just balance within a spec. It has to be balanced within the context of every other spec and class in the game as well. This with a new class in the game, with an extra 2 specs in the game as well, which they're adding this expansion. The Professions update, I don't even want to think about, honestly, because I feel like the Professions update, the problem with the Professions update is not only the amount of work that needs to go into it, but the lack of testing that it's going to get. Let's be real. You get into the Dragonflight alpha, you log into Dragonflight, what's the first thing you're doing? You're going to look at zones and stuff, maybe you're going to test some dungeons and stuff, then you're going to look at talent trees for the classes that you like and you are interested in, and you're going to be like that. A very small proportion, relatively, of the player base will be testing the new Professions to the extent that they need to be tested. Anyone can give their opinion about the talent trees. Anyone can give their opinion about the new zones. Anyone can give their opinion about the new dungeons or the new raid or new abilities or the Dragonflight renown trees or anything like that. Very few people are going to put in the work that is needed to properly see everything in the new profession trees, let alone give valuable feedback on it. There will be people that do, but relative to everything else getting tested, professions are going to be massively under-tested. I know lots of you will. I'm talking relative to everything else. It's going to be the thing that isn't tested, for sure. And that's a worry too. And don't forget the size of the Dragon Isles. The Dragon Isles is going to be as big as Northrend, the biggest non-old world continent in the game. And the Dragon Isles is going to be as big as it. Maybe slightly smaller, maybe slightly bigger is what we've got from interviews, but definitely comparable to it. It's going to be more like Northrend in size than any other continent. And that is huge. There's 9 zones in Northrend. There's 5 zones in Dragonflight. Those zones are going to be monstrously large. Partly because you've got to fly around them on your cool dragon. They've got to be big, right? They're so big, they're increasing the draw distance. Now that takes a lot of design. I'm really hoping that they have the courage to leave a lot of those things empty and open, because I kind of love that. And I know that devs don't like doing that because they don't feel like they're doing their job properly, but I really hope so. Also, a question that I have not seen asked, which I forgot to ask in the roundtable, was whether the draw distance was going to get rolled out to every zone. I'm assuming it will, but I'd just like some confirmation on that. Yeah, and there's going to be immense verticality in that zone as well, you know? I'm not saying every zone is going to be like the Storm Peaks, but I think more of that continent is going to be like the Storm Peaks than, Borean Tundra, put it that way. We'll see. In Northrend, it's a lot more biodomes. There's more variety of assets. Okay, I buy that. Let's look at the different zones in Dragonflight. I've got them all collected here. Hang on. So this is the Waking Shores, the first zone that we go into. And there is a lot of verticality happening in this zone, right? I mean, just before we look at this, if we look at an image, there's this great concept art image, right, of the Dragon Isles. So this is as close as we've got to a picture of the whole of the Dragon Isles, is this concept art. That's the concept art for the Dragon Isles. And you can see the verticality here, right? And it seems to get higher in the middle. Or at least one side in the middle. And it has been said that kind of as you progress through the zones of Dragon Isles, you're kind of traveling up the Dragon Isles as well as through them. So they're very vertical zones, as well as being as big as Northrend, there's a lot of verticality going on there as well, which makes them even bigger again. And you can definitely see that in this kind of little zone preview here, right? They want you to have lots of places to get to on your dragon. They want you leveling your dragon to be how you get to other places and stuff. Ducks. Verticality, not a problem for them, right? So this is the opening zone. Then you got the Onarum Plains. Now this is nuts. This zone is crazy. I'm really looking forward to this zone. This is the one I'm hoping is going to be really open and sparse. Kind of like that awesome Mongolian themed zone in Stormblood, Final Fantasy XIV. The one that you don't think is going to be the best zone in the fucking game, but then it is. What is that called? I can't even remember. Oh, is it Azim Steppe? Yeah, that makes sense. So this is where the green Dragonflight are, and where you find the centaurs as well. And this looks like it's kind of like Nagrand almost, in how just big it is, right? This is where you go hunting on the plains. It isn't Northrend size if it doesn't have 10 zones. Well, of course it is. It just means the zones are much, much bigger than a single Northrend zone. That's all. It can be the same size as Northrend and only be one zone. Okay, Adospan is the one I'm really excited about. This is where it starts getting real for me. This is the one I'm super, super excited for, because this is like the Grizzly Hills themed zone. Big, big trees, big redwoods, lush. I really want to get lost in some of these zones, and then it literally goes up into the mountains. This zone, kind of how Borealis does. It starts off as a kind of Grizzly Hill zones, and it goes up into the mountains, and that's where the Tuskar are. So this is like Grizzly Hills, but with Tuskar. I'm so excited for that. So excited. You know, but it goes from like lush, verdant, green forest into something that isn't really shown here, to be honest. Like, but big icy mountaintops, which I'm really, really into. Completely down with it. And that's where the Tuskar are, obviously. So these zones are huge. And, you know, if it's as big as Northrend, that's like probably twice the amount of ground size as Shadowlands. At least 50% more, you would have to say. And that's 50% more design time that's going to take. Simple as that. Yeah. The gnolls that she tells you not to worry about, right? And not to mention the amount of man-hours that went into this new Kalagos model, right? And then you've got the red dragon bit, which is also going to be where the hub is as well, I think. And you know, this is where the kind of the center of the civilization is, I guess. And this seems incredibly vertical as well. And Thaldraszus seems like it needs a lot of work. Yeah, we've seen very, very little of this zone. I think this will have multiple hubs, and I hope it does. Yeah, maybe. But I think this is billed as being like the main city. I think there's stuff like an auction house here. I think they said there was going to be an auction house in this city. So it's got stuff that expansion cities don't usually have. It's that kind of big. Look at this. I mean, look how massive that is. That's huge. That shot there gives you an idea of the kind of scale we're talking about. That's some massive, massive shit happening there. And that's going to take extra time and extra work and extra man hours. I think there's plenty, despite there not being like a big borrow power system at the center of this game. I think there's loads that clearly is going to take a vast amount of work. I probably disagree with people who are like, oh, there's no borrow power, so less to do, less to test. I don't know. I'm not so sure. Now, what I would say is, I think there's an assumption that Blizz can't possibly be correct. When they say, which they have said, you know, and we don't know who has said this. Maybe it's just Bobby Kotick sitting in his office, piece of shit. Or maybe this is a decision that has come from a very informed place, you know, from the team. But someone thinks this game is going to be ready for 2022. And I guess the question is who that someone is. And at the moment, there isn't much evidence pointing in either way. So at the moment, I don't see the harm in giving like the game the benefit of the doubt. I don't see the harm in assuming that it's an informed decision by people who genuinely would know whether it's going to be finished by 2022 or not. Now, obviously, I have like worries. Obviously, I have big worries about the team and crunch, which is actually like genuinely very important to me, more than getting the game on time, more than it being a good game, if I'm perfectly honest. Don't want anyone working crunch. I hate that shit. So I have concern, but I feel like it's probably, my concern is nowhere near informed enough at the moment to say, there's no way. Oh, it's definitely going to get delayed into 2023, and if it's not, it's going to be shit. I feel like my concern might well be reasonable, but it's not informed enough to kind of be really worried about right now. Does that make sense? There's also the thing of like, what damage would it really do to Blizzard if they did delay it? Would it genuinely really hurt Blizz if they delayed it? Poll time. How many of you, if you have pre-ordered the game, okay, if you've pre-purchased the game right now, and I'm only asking people who have pre-purchased, if in November Blizzard announced that actually they were delaying it until 2023, people who have purchased it now, would you refund? Like, I just don't see how Blizz can lose by saying it's going to come out in 2022. Because I genuinely think they could say it's delayed until March 2023. I don't think anyone would refund. If you've pre-purchased this game, you're still going to want to play it in March. You know? I don't think anyone's going to refund it. Like, you've pre-purchased not to, like, make sure you'll definitely end up play the game. You've pre-purchased because you want the fucking dragon. You know? You've pre-purchased because you know you're going to play this game, whether it comes out in 2022 or 2023. And I think that's reasonable. You know, I'm definitely going to play this game. I'm almost certainly going to enjoy it to a certain degree, even if it's a really bad WoW expansion. I really like WoW, as I've said many times. So to a certain extent, I'm always going to enjoy it. And the reason I pre-purchased is because I'll be honest with you, I'd probably pre-purchase even if there wasn't any bonuses. But I really want this dragon. It's awesome. Have you seen it? Look at it. It's incredible. I love it. And I want all the other cool stuff that comes with it. And I won't have that anymore if I refund. I'm not going to refund. Let's be real. I'd love to play the badass, like, internet computer game guy with you here. I'd love to be like, oh, yeah, dudes, shouldn't pre-purchase. It's bad for the games industry. It is bad for the games industry. But also, you get cool shit that you might want. I like cool shit that I might want. I'm really, really gutted that I didn't pre-purchase Elden Ring. I'm really gutted that I didn't drop $500 dues on Elden Ring on the collector's edition before I'd ever played that game. But no, I'm too cool of an internet guy. I'm too much of a smart consumer. I'm like, why would I pre-purchase a collector's edition for a game that I haven't even played? Maybe it won't be good. Well done, Tally, but now you're never getting that cool pre-purchase with the cool Millennia helmet, are you? And you could have done... I've learned my lesson. I'm joking. Don't pre-purchase, it's bad. But at the same time, if there's cool stuff that you want, what's wrong? You're just buying cool stuff. So literally 5 of you say that you would refund. So that's, you know, assuming that this is even slightly representative, which I don't think is unreasonable to suggest it might be, Blizz are going to lose like 5% on these pre-orders if they push it back. What are they going to lose? Nothing. Basically, nothing. Why wouldn't they just, like, you know, if there's any chance it's going to come out in 2022, why not just say it? You can always just push it back. Who cares? What, you're going to lose nothing. No one that's pre-ordered it is going to cancel their pre-order. And they've already proven they're not afraid to delay. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it is guaranteed that this game's going to come out in 2022. I don't think Blizz will be afraid to push it back if it comes down to it. You know, they wanted to get this out there. They put in a date of 2022, and it's generated some serious hype, saying that's going to be 2022. It's a good news story, right? And that will remain the same even if they end up pushing it back to 2023. The fact is, I feel like if they announced tomorrow that they're pushing it back to 2023, without us having seen any more or less of the game, I think half the people who have already pre-purchased would literally be glad. Yeah, there are people in this chat right now saying they hope they push it back to 2023, having not seen what position the game is in, what state the game is in. The people saying that they hope they push it back to 2023 have seen none of this game. They don't know where in development this game is. Just like the people who are saying, I think it'll be out in 2022, have not seen anything of where this game is at right now. We're talking completely out of our asses. If you're saying they hope they push it back, that's based on nothing but your fucking prostate. If you're saying they hope they get it out in 2022, that's based on nothing. It's based on zero evidence. Nothing. None of us know what we're talking about. None of us know where this game is at. We're talking on guesswork and speculation and guessing based on like past experience, but we have no idea how developed or not this game is right now. Simple as that. We don't know if they would be rushing to get it out in 2022. We don't know if they should really put it back to 2024. Until the alpha hits, we have no clue. Simple as that. I think the alpha will probably come out in mid-July. I would guess the week of the 13th. You know, I would probably... The 13th is a Wednesday, so I would... Thursday always seems like a good time for this kind of stuff, doesn't it? Thursday always seems like a good alpha day. So let's say the 14th. But anytime that week. That's when I would guess. Any guesses for Wrath release? No, I don't care enough to think about it. Honestly, I'll be really happy when it releases, and I'll play it. I'll level through a few zones. I'll have a great time, really good time, and I'll love every moment that I do it. But I don't care enough to speculate about it. Next week, you reckon? I'd love that. I'd love that. And honestly, I think it could be any moment now. I think the... Oh, you mean for Wrath, or do you mean for Alpha? For Alpha, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it released tomorrow. Like, genuinely. I wouldn't be surprised any day that it released now. I'm just guessing second week of July because it seems likely. What do I want from the Wrath Classic, the mount bundle like they did for BC? Oh, I don't know, a hippo. A Tuskar. I think they put December 31, 2022 as an arbitrary date just to get additional hype, knowing they won't hit that date. Yeah, I mean, I honestly wouldn't surprise me. Like I say, I don't think it hurts them at all to push it back. I don't think it hurts them at all. Looking forward to editing this vid just in time for it to come out on Monday. Yeah, bro. Our dragons will have their own talent trees, correct? Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a bit more like tower knowledge rather than a talent tree. From what I gather, and tell me if you think you disagree, but it feels a bit more like the artifact or tower knowledge where you eventually fill everything out rather than you pick this or that. I think that the dragon is basically the artifact weapon or the Heart of Azeroth or the Covenant of this expansion. I think that's fair to say. Yeah. It's going to be tower knowledge, isn't it? Basically. But it is also going to be account-wide to a large degree. Anything that affects the power of the dragon, like increases their speed, was the example given by Ian Hazakostas, will be account-wide. So much better than tower knowledge, or artifacts for that matter. Much, much better. So presumably there'll be some things that you unlock that aren't account-wide, but Ian said, power stuff like, a speed increase or something would be account-wide, which is awesome. Amazing to hear, genuinely. Really, really good. But yeah, so I'm loath to be too worried about Dragonflight right now. My natural gut reaction is the same as you guys. My natural gut reaction is to be quite worried about it and that it's too soon. But I'm also willing to accept that I have no idea, and that is based on absolutely nothing. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how much is there when the alpha hits. And here's another thing about the alpha, something else that has been posited. People are saying, like, maybe, it's no borrowed power system. Maybe that's why there's not so much to test. Maybe that's why they're expecting a quicker alpha turnaround, because it would be the quickest alpha beta cycle of any expansion ever. Don't forget. But, something that's been suggested is maybe they're planning on keeping story stuff off of there. Maybe the only things to test in that entire alpha and beta cycle will be the talent trees and the professions and the dragon riding and the new world content, which apparently they've hired an entire new team's worth of people to do. Maybe there simply won't be questing to test or story to test. I don't think that's going to be the case, but could be. I hope it's the case, yeah. I don't think it will be, but I really, really hope it is. I'd be very surprised if they didn't do any dungeon testing. Raid testing, who knows, but I'd be incredibly surprised if they didn't test any dungeons. Or all of the dungeons. Yeah, now, I have not been able to verify this with an interview. I haven't really gone looking for it since, but I don't remember it in the first round of interviews. But I've heard multiple people say this, that they've hired like a team's worth of people to do new world content. So I don't have a source on that. I haven't put the time in to find it. I don't remember it from the first cycle of interviews, but that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard people say. I think Taliesin said that. So I'm willing to accept it might be an interview that I've just missed. Okay, you can check the job listings. Right, it's not quite the same, is it? It's not quite the same thing. Okay, so take that one with a pinch of salt, but there's evidence there to suggest that it's happened, I guess. You can say. I don't know, I'm still in like major hype mode for Dragonflight, and I can't help it, man. It's really hard to have been playing Shadowlands with all that's good and bad about Shadowlands, but the one thing you're always going to guarantee to be sick of by the end of expansion is the zones, right? And I think that's doubly the case for Shadowlands because of the way the zones are laid out, the way that each zone is an island, not connected to anything else. It makes them feel very small and theme parky, the way you're basically in weird space and stuff. And it's so easy to look at these zones and get excited and feel like, yeah, old school fantasy, my dudes. We're back. It's so easy to look at these zones and be like, WoW is back. And I don't need some weird system. I just need some cool stories to run around a cool zone on my dragon and have like fun. I don't care there's not a big system. I don't care. I've said before that it feels like there's a box feature missing from Dragonflight, but I don't even mean that as a bad thing. It could be quite a good thing. Just do the good game instead. And I think there's everything to suggest that, everything that I've seen about Dragonflight so far really, really pushes my buttons. These zones have a sky with day and night and people that live there who could go to other parts of Azeroth if they wanted to. I know it sounds like a really weird thing, but it's called the World of Warcraft, right? So if the talent trees and the professions and the dragon riding is the only big new things in the game, I'm down with that. There may be a box feature missing, but when the box systems are bad, that is a very good thing. Yeah, exactly.